Drums provide the rhythm and backbone to any track that you are working on. If this element doesn't have the punch, power, and impact that it needs, then your track runs the risk of sounding lifeless and dull. But how do we make sure that our drums are standing out in the mix and are giving our track the foundation it needs? The answer lies within the samples that you choose and with the processing that you do to them. My name is Daniel with Envato Tuts. In this tutorial, we're going to go over how to process your drum group in Ableton. So let's get into the DAW. When processing drums, the devil is in the details. By applying small amounts of saturation, distortion, compression, and EQing, we can create powerful drums. So let's first have a listen to our drums here. The first step in processing our drums is going to include an EQ. And this EQ is going to help shape our drums in a very minimal way. Now from listening to the drums, I could hear that a little more power in the low end and the high end is needed, and these needs are going to be reflected in our EQ here. So go ahead and put on a notch EQ here, and around 100 Hertz, we're going to add in a little bump at around 0.62 decibels, just give the low end a little bit more power to give that kick a little more punch, and then we're going to do the same with the high end. Just to have the higher frequencies, the snare, the hi-hats to sizzle a little bit more. And we'll have that at around 1.36 decibels. And to create even more impact with these two EQ boosts, we're going to go ahead and add in another notch EQ here and go around 843 Hertz and reduce a few frequencies. With a wide Q here, we'll go ahead and reduce around 0.48 decibels. As we don't want this to be a very major cut, we just want to again accentuate the low and high notch EQing that we have done. So let's have a listen to this EQ. Without. So already you can hear it's a little bit more present in the mix. And next we're going to go ahead and add a compressor. And the goal of this compressor is to just glue our sounds together a little bit better. So we'll have a ratio of around 2.6 here. And an attack of around 11 milliseconds, as we do want the initial hit of our drums to come through. We don't want to squash those transients too much here. And a release of around 62 milliseconds will help make sure the compressor isn't held down for too long, and we're allowing the drums to breathe while still gluing them together. And then we'll go ahead and adjust the threshold. And our goal is to have a very small amount of gain reduction, again, just to glue our drums together. So let's have a listen. So this adds some nice glue to our sound. So without. Now with. So again, very subtle, no major changes here. The goal is to just layer in this compression EQing and other processing to keep the original tone and character of our drums and just enhance the power that it gives in our mix. So next, we're going to go ahead and add in some saturation. We're going to go ahead and use Ableton's Saturator, and we'll add in 2 decibels of drive and change the saturation type to soft sine, which is a little bit more of an aggressive saturation, and then turn down the dry wet to around 20% here. Let's have a listen. And to make sure we're not clipping, we're going to go ahead and turn down the output. We'll go around 2 decibels here. And then next, we're going to add in our parallel compression. Parallel compression is a type of compression that brings out the quieter elements in your mix and leaves the initial transients that you have intact. So any compressor will work for parallel compression, but we're going to go ahead and use Ableton's compressor. Now to accomplish this parallel compression, we need our compressor to be working very hard. So a very high ratio will be needed. We'll go around a 15:1 ratio, and we want to let the initial transients come through. So around 13 milliseconds for the attack. And for the release, we'll make it a bit longer at around 146 milliseconds, as we want the compressor to be constantly gripping down on our audio. And we'll turn the makeup gain off because we're going to be applying quite a bit of threshold here. We're going to want a heavy amount of gain reduction. We'll go all the way down to around 31 decibels. We'll have a listen to this. So you can hear that the dynamics of the drums are destroyed, but we're not going to be applying the full amount of this effect. Again, we just want subtle layers. So we can go ahead and adjust the dry wet to add in just a little bit of this effect. Go ahead and turn it down to around 27%. Now let's have a listen. And now let's go ahead and adjust the output. And we're going to go ahead and adjust the dry wet just a little bit here, lessen the effect a tiny bit, keep it around 20%, and readjust the output. Now when we're readjusting the output, we're looking to have it be the same level as our unprocessed signal here. And by having them at the same level, the unprocessed and processed signal, we can hear just exactly what the processing is doing to our sound. That way we can make the most accurate processing decisions possible. And then finally, we're going to add in our over-the-top compression. Over-the-top compression is a form of upwards and downwards compression that adds a bit more grit to your sound, as well as pushes the sound a bit more to the front of the mix. I'm going to go ahead and load up Xfer Serum's OTT plugin. This is a free plugin by Xfer Records that you can grab on the Xfer Records website, again for free. So to get that upfront sound, I like to add in upwards compression, and I'll add in some upward compression on the mid and the high frequencies. And I'm going to go ahead and move these black bars a little bit to the right to put more of the signal into the upwards compression. And then I'm going to go ahead and adjust the upwards percentage knob and bring it up a little bit to 120%. And this is going to make the effect a little bit more prominent. And now we're going to go ahead and adjust the depth or dry wet percentage to find out what sounds best with our drums. And now that we have finished our processing, we can go ahead and compare the processed with the unprocessed signal. So without all our plugins here, and now with. So you can hear with very subtle EQing, different types of compression and saturation, you can create a more upfront and punchy drum mix.